Welcome to the podcast. Let's dig into this intriguing but controversial proposal. President Trump suggested that Palestinians should leave Gaza, calling it unlivable, saying it'd take 10 to 15 years to rebuild after the destruction from Israeli strikes since
Absolutely.
October 7th.
Wait, so he actually said that Palestinians should just basically leave? That's a pretty bold statement, huh?
Yeah, exactly. He repeated it in the Oval Office with Netanyahu, and then again at a press conference. He even insinuated that the U.S. might take over the Gaza Strip.
Yep, quite a claim. That's astonishing. So what's the big issue with that suggestion? Seems like it opens up a huge can of worms for regional stability.
Right, absolutely. One of the main points raised was the sheer impracticality of relocating like 2 million people. Fareed Zakaria questioned how that's even feasible because neighboring countries, Egypt and Jordan, have flat out
That makes
refused to
sense.
take them in.
So it sounds like this isn't just a matter of advice, it's a suggestion that ignores deeply rooted geopolitical realities. What else did critics point out?
Well, Zakaria also noted that to actually pull off such a relocation, you'd need an enormous military operation, invading Gaza, kicking Hamas out, and managing counterinsurgency. And that kind of involvement really flies in the face of the America First policy that Trump's been pushing.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, comparison to previous interventions like in Iraq, Afghanistan, even Vietnam, really puts it into perspective, doesn't it?
Exactly. It's like trying to jump into a raging river without knowing how to swim. Massive military and political risks that history shows are rarely manageable.
Totally. And then there's the whole impact on ongoing ceasefire deals, right? I heard that Trump's words could potentially jeopardize any current arrangements between Hamas and Israel.
Yep, that's another layer of complexity. If you think about it, the proposal might force Israeli troops to withdraw from certain areas, which is a hot tug of war within Israel's own coalition government. This could totally upset the delicate balance that the ceasefire depends on.
Right, absolutely. And on top of that, Hamas isn't likely to just sit back, is it? They'd probably double down on their resistance.
Precisely. Critics like Zakaria speculated that Hamas would seriously dig in and prepare even tougher defenses if they saw any hint of American involvement in Gaza. And that sort of escalation makes any potential U.S. role particularly problematic.
It's almost like he's setting up a situation where instead of easing tensions, it could ignite more conflict.
Exactly. And speaking of perspectives from the Israeli side, things are a bit fascinating too. Israeli journalist Nadav Hill noted that Netanyahu's right-wing coalition sees Trump's proposal as something of a favorable development, something that aligns with some long-standing ideas within Israel's far right.
Yeah, that's interesting. Wait, so even though Trump's suggestion is so out there, some in Israel actually think it could work in their favor?
Yes, but there's nuance here. Netanyahu himself didn't explicitly endorse the plan during the press conference. Instead, he kept the focus on the ongoing war against Hamas and the return of hostages, leaving his coalition to interpret Trump's comments in their own ways.
True, that's a delicate political dance. But isn't that, in a way, creating a sort of double standard? On one side, bold rhetoric from the president, and on the other, politicians playing it safe, yet internally, they're excited about the idea.
I get where you're coming from. It's almost like a situation where bold words might be interpreted differently by different groups. And here's where another point comes in. Many Arab leaders, like those from Saudi Arabia and other moderate regimes, are deeply concerned. They fear that displacing Palestinians could really destabilize their own countries, given how central the Palestinian issue is in the region.
Very true. So, these Arab states are standing firm against any idea of displacement, insisting on a Palestinian state as a condition for any normalization deal with Israel.
Exactly. They're not just dismissing the idea, they're emphasizing the essential need for a viable Palestinian state. Any proposal that involves mass displacement, like Trump's, runs counter to decades of diplomatic and humanitarian principles that these countries uphold.
Right, that's a major sticking point. And then there's the lack of a clear plan, isn't there? Even within Israeli circles, many officials were taken aback by how committed Trump sounded to this proposal.
Yes, that's a critical highlight. There's no coherent mechanics explained. What are the Palestinians supposed to be offered? Where would they go? The plan is remarkably vague, which adds another layer of uncertainty to an already explosive
That
situation.
vagueness is a huge red flag. It's almost like someone announcing a breakup without any explanation or support plan for what comes next, right?
Exactly. That's a spot-on analogy. In a breakup, especially one as dramatic as this suggestion, not having a clear structure can result in total chaos and heartache for everyone involved.
Absolutely. Now, let's consider a respectful critique here. While the proposal is undeniably extreme, is there any merit in proposing a radical reset of the region's dynamics? Could it be the push that forces everyone to rethink the status quo?
That's a fair question. I mean, on one hand, bold ideas do sometimes shake up entrenched systems. But here's the catch. If you try a reset by displacing millions of people without a solid plan, it's not a reset. It's more like a catastrophic overhaul that might backfire spectacularly.
Yeah, I see that concern. So basically, the risks outweigh any potential benefits of such a radical approach. It's more likely to cause deep instability than to bring about any positive change.
Exactly. And that's the crux of the issue. The idea of forcibly relocating 2 million people with no clear strategy for post-relocation stability or support highlights exactly why this proposal is seen as impractical and, frankly, dangerous.
Right, that danger is palpable. And looking at the broader picture, doesn't this also reflect on the complexity of American involvement in foreign conflicts? It's like you make one bold move and then the entire region feels the shockwaves.
Absolutely. It reminds me of how previous military interventions have turned out, each one leaving behind a trail of unforeseen consequences and lingering instability. The history of interventions in places like Iraq and Afghanistan just reinforces how, without a realistic exit strategy, these efforts end up costing far more than they ever solve.
Definitely. And in this instance, Trump's proposal appears to be more of a rhetorical statement rather than a well thought out policy. It's as if the shock value is front and center, with little consideration of the deep humanitarian and geopolitical fallout.
Exactly. It's like an attempt to reset the conversation by throwing an outrageous idea into the mix. But without the feasibility of actually implementing such a plan, it ends up being just that, rhetoric without substance.
I agree completely. So ultimately, we're left with a scenario where, despite all the bold statements, there's a glaring absence of any actionable plan. The proposal just exacerbates existing tensions instead of offering a definitive solution.
Precisely. And that's why experts caution against taking these kinds of suggestions seriously. They serve more to highlight the frustrations and complexities on the ground rather than providing a path forward.
Exactly. And the potential for regional destabilization is real. With every new provocative idea, the stakes rise for everyone involved, from the local populations in Gaza to the geopolitical balancing act in the entire Middle East.
Right, the repercussions could be enormous. It's a high-stakes game here, and any miscalculation might lead to even more prolonged conflicts in a region that's already fragile.
Exactly, very true. In the end, it seems we're looking at a situation where bold rhetoric meets unworkable policy, and the fallout could prove disastrous if not handled with extreme caution.
Absolutely. Until there's a thoughtful, realistic strategy that addresses the humanitarian, political, and military dimensions of the issue, these proposals remain, well, dangerously impractical.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. Thanks for dissecting these points. It really shows how something as brazen as a displacement proposal can rattle the entire region. It's definitely a lot to think about when it comes to major geopolitical moves.
Indeed it is. And while these discussions are challenging, they're essential for understanding the deep complexities at play. Until next time, keep questioning the bold ideas and push for pragmatic solutions.
Absolutely. Thanks for the insightful discussion. Until our next deep dive.